What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic that I was just writing up the show notes for at the very last second. And this week is no exception. So hello, welcome. Nice to see you all here on Friday evening. At least it's evening my time. Probably for many of you it's morning. Sorry, but I guess, you know, Friday's a good day, so it's not like it matters too much that it's Friday morning for you, because it's going to be kind of, well, I hope it will be a chill day and you're looking forward to the weekend. I'm closer to the weekend in that regard, but, you know, still, it is what it is. So, that went a little bit vague at the end. So let's see, let me say hello to the people who are here so far. Let me know if you see any kind of issues with the stream quality or anything as well. 'Cause I literally just got the thing set up and sometimes stuff goes wrong. Hello to Pie the Sailor, Big Edie, Case, Osloy. Let's see. Gun. I think that's all the people that I've seen so far on the IRC side. I see Einar, E-Beam, and Beachout joining, but not saying anything yet. Hello to Fikri, Paul, and Mike over on the YouTube side. Glad to see you all. Big Edie is saying that I'm going to go over the generally accepted accounting practices, GAAP. I bet you didn't think I knew that, did you? It's not that special, I guess, of an acronym. It's just, you know, one of those acronyms you run into whenever you start dealing with accounting, which, you know, sometimes I have to do. So, you know, this topic of accounting is, from the outside, you think accounting, that's just boring. Like, why would you want to talk about accounting? But have you ever really looked into double entry bookkeeping? It's kind of interesting, actually. It's kind of cool. I like it. We'll see if you do too. I don't know. We won't really get into like the nuts and bolts of double entry accounting on this stream, but I will tell you enough about sort of like the model of ledger and the associated, you know, mode and alternative program H ledger that you would sort of understand the basics of what you need to do in a program like this to manage your accounting, either for personal or business purpose, which I think is kind of cool. Case says, I prefer Old Navy. Old Navy? Prefer it to what? Case says, I used Bean Count for like 2 years. Eventually, I just got tired of it. Is that the interface on top of H Ledger? Of course, I didn't ever use the data to like do anything. Yeah, you kind of need to use the information. Gap versus... Oh, come on, man. Dad jokes. Dad jokes. Your way to do the CPA using Ledger and Geeks. Is that an alternative stream title, Gun? Your way to the CPA using Ledger and Geeks. Or alternative title, your way to get laughed at by your accountant whenever you show up with Ledger files instead of QuickBooks files. Bean Count is the Python rewrite more like a port or whatever. Yeah. This idea of plain text accounting is... I don't know if I'd say popular, but it is sort of well understood at this point. We'll talk about that too. Chimshaw says, looking forward to the stream. I use GNU Cash for budgeting, but I've been looking into Ledger for some of its simpler reports. Yeah, I want to look at reports while we're looking at this as well, because reports are interesting. Well, let me see how I want to say this. Yes, exactly, Case. That's a great website. So, like Case says, you spend a lot of time putting information into an accounting tool. Really, what you want is to get something out of that. So one of the things you can get out of that is just having like a breakdown of all your income and expenses for taxes, especially if you run a business. It's really important to have all that stuff dealt with in an organized way so that you can do your taxes effectively, because it's a lot more important to do your accounting correctly if you have a business. If you're just doing it for yourself, it's more like for budgeting, I guess. I mean, it's for taxes too, but you usually don't have to like break down your expenses very much unless you don't take the standardized deduction and things like that. I'm not going to get into all the accounting business here. basically what I'm trying to say is for personal accounting, really what you're doing is trying to stick to a budget in a lot of cases. But for business accounting, you're really trying to like strictly keep track of your income and expenses and liabilities and all that stuff. So it's useful for those things. You definitely want to have reports that you can generate that gives you the breakdown of different ways to look at that information. And that's one of the things that you get out of a tool like Ledger and other plain text accounting tools, is it gives you the ability to generate reports, which kind of boils up the information for you. It's good. All right, so John says, can Ledger be compiled to WASM? Next video series, because I don't want to do it. Well, why would we want to compile it to WASM? But yeah, I think, I would imagine even right now, you could probably compile Ledger to WASM using mscripten, because it's a C program, I think. What is Ledger written in? I'm getting way off track here. Wikipedia, Ledger program. Written in C++. Presumably, you could compile this to the web with mscripten. So yes, we could already do that, probably. But you just need to have an interface on top of it of some sort. C++, according to plaintextaccounting.org. Hey, Alejandro. Okay. Anywho, let's just get into the news first, because I'm getting off track. First of all, the Spring Lisp Game Jam is almost here. It starts on May 9th. That's about a month away. It's a 10-day game jam, which is basically an event where multiple people come together to make a game, not necessarily from scratch. There's some rules where you could, continue working on an existing game that you have, or a new one from scratch, whatever you want. But the main rule being that you must use a Lisp language of some sort, even one that you've created yourself. So it's a really fun event. I've done it a few times now. I think I'm gonna participate. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna participate. I'm gonna live stream some of what I do on the project. I kind of know what I'm gonna do, but I haven't really fleshed out the idea just yet, but we'll talk about that as time gets closer. But it's a fun thing to do, and sort of, excuse me, have a way to work on a fun project along with people from the community. So Big Edie says, resurrecting a Flux Harmonic. Probably not. I know the last time I did the game jam, I did it on this channel. I might do that again, because we'll be using Guile, and we'll be doing stuff that is pretty similar to what we've been doing on the Crafter Hour streams. So yes, I definitely recommend joining the Spring Lisp Game Jam if you have any issues, or if you have any interest in writing a game with a Lisp, because it's a lot of fun, And if you are trying to learn a new, come on, Gase, Guile, get good, Common Lisp, no. Maybe we'll look at Common Lisp at some point, but I'm having fun writing Guile right now, so I don't really have a reason to go use that crusty old committee-driven standardized language. Just kidding. Faye's not here to yell at me. So yes, join the Spring Lisp Game Jam. That's coming soon. It's 10 days long, and it's a lot of fun, right? Next, I keep mentioning I have a Geeks course in development, which I do, and I'm sort of working on a series of courses that are going from sort of getting started, setting up your first Geek system, not just installation, but sort of like what do you need to learn to maintain the system day to day, and then going from that to actually crafting your whole system end to end, and how to do more advanced development with Geeks, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that I've got sort of planned, but I'm working on the first one now, and what I want to do is get the people involved in System Crafters Guild to join for kind of working through it with me as I develop the course material, sort of kind of like just giving things a try, reading through it, let me know what they think, let me know what I missed, that sort of thing. So the people who join the System Crafters Guild, which is kind of like Patreon, but it's my own thing, at the $15 a month tier or higher, will be added to a group on the forum where we are discussing the material, which I haven't done in the last couple weeks because I've been busy with other stuff, but I'm getting back to that this upcoming week. But anyway, you'll be added to a group where we're going to be discussing the material, and I'll definitely be looking to people's feedback to kind of fine tune the course as we develop it, and also sort of try it out, and maybe you'll learn from it through that rather than taking the course yourself. So I don't know, we'll see. If you want to learn how to join the guild to be a part of this, go to systemcrafters.store. If you scroll down to about the middle of the page, there's a join the guild section here. If you join, it's going to ask you, excuse me, it's going to ask you to create an account, which is for a different site than the forum. It's confusing. I kind of want to change that, and I probably will at some point, but for now, it's going to ask you to create an account on this site, the store site, and then you'll also create an account on the forum. So 2 different things. Just keep that in mind, but at least if you sign up, then I will personally add you to the group whenever you're in on one of those tiers. All right. And also, I should mention, this stream is sponsored by the System Crafters Guild, which is the people who have decided to support the work that I've been doing on the channel. So thank you to all of you who are members of the guild. There's a number of you here right now, so I appreciate all of you who have joined. I am trying to eventually get like an overlay I can show on the screen with the people who are in the guild, the current guild members, and sort of just like do it live every time to be able to thank people on here. So if you want your name to be showing up on the screen for that, also you can join. Mike says, me too. Yes, Mike, you too. You are a member of the guild, dude. GK Sudo says, on the topic of the scheme, is mesh end of life? Well, it was never really alive per se. What I would say is the reasoning for creating mesh was because I had certain types of applications I wanted to develop, including things on the web, and Guilehoot has kind of replaced the need for mesh in some ways, because it does give us the ability to compile scheme to WebAssembly and run it in the browser. So I don't know. I mean, like, I enjoy working on mesh, but as I've said multiple times, there's something about compiler development that will suck you in and you will forget about everything else that you need to do. So I am trying to avoid it somewhat because I don't really want to get sucked into the black hole of compiler development again, because it's a lot of fun and you will get sucked into a black hole and you just continually like find new ways to spend your time working on compiler optimizations or abstractions or all types of things like that. So anyway, yes, I love mesh. I think it's a fun project, but for now it's on hold, that's for sure. I'm focusing my energy on Guile for the most part at this point. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else I missed in the chat. Gunn says, didn't Awk mention some Awk spreadsheet program in their first Penguin book? I don't know. Kay says that Ledger is written by John Weagley too, which is why Emacs integration is pretty good. Yeah, we should mention that in a second. Let's see. Pie the Sailor says, don't hate. Alejandro says, Common Lisp is good, but weird. It's probably fine. I don't know. It's probably fine. I'm more of a scheme fan. What can I say? Paul Edward says, Guile rules the world. I don't know if it rules the world, but it's good. RJ says, will there be a way to try it in a VM? I don't want to break my only laptop trying Geeks. Yeah, definitely. You could definitely try Geeks in a VM. It's, I mean, you can actually download a VM image with it already installed if you want, and just play around with it there. So it's another possibility. Okay, plain text accounting in Emacs. First of all, let me drop some links in here. So I'm going to drop in plaintextaccounting.org first, because that is one thing that that Case had mentioned. It's a great website for explaining this concept of plain text accounting. So if you are an enthusiast of Emacs, I probably don't have to explain to you the value of having important information in plain text. So one big example of this is org mode files, where not only do you have written information in the org mode files, but you also have code blocks that can be executed. You have tables that actually can do spreadsheet-like behavior. You can generate documents out of org files. You can do all sorts of stuff just from a plain text file in org mode format. So we already sort of understand that plain text file formats can be quite powerful. Now there's a whole subgenre, let's say, of plain text format stuff around accounting. And this plain text accounting website kind of catalogs the different programs and techniques you could use for plain text accounting. Now, why would you want to do something like this? Well, I mean, probably I don't have to explain it to you, but I will explain it to you. The idea is that it would be very convenient if you could write your accounting information, your ledger, let's say, your series of transactions between accounts in your accounting, in your bookkeeping process, let's say. If you could write those all in text. Why? Well, because text is very easy to process, and it's easy to process from multiple tools, especially if the format of the text is pretty amenable to regular expressions or other kinds of text processing patterns. It could have a lot of value for you. So it's not locked away in some proprietary format from a proprietary program like a QuickBooks file or something. I don't really know if those are stored in some format that can be read easily, but they're not really meant for you to go and crack open and start messing with. So having stuff in a format that isn't like an XML file or some other weird stuff like that, having it in a normal plain text format that is human readable makes it really useful to a person who knows how to use good tools. Also, it makes it so you can store all of your accounting information in a Git repository, which is pretty awesome. Think about, doing actual operations to your accounting books, let's say. If you're, updating your accounts, or maybe you're trying to close your books for the quarter, for a business or anything like that, being able to check that stuff into a source control repository just gives you way more of a sense of stability and security that you're not going to lose your accounting info just because some program crashed and decided to eat the file. So I don't know, that plus other reasons are why something like this would be useful. Now, obviously a person could say, well, I mean, if it's not in a database, then that means you have to go reread the text file every time you want to do operations on your accounting information. Well, sure, yes, but probably you're not going to have hundreds of years of accounting information that have to be processed every time you run it. So, it's probably not a big deal. I think that there's not really a big concern about that. So this site kind of goes through the thought process. In fact, let me make this not blinding. What is accounting and what can it do for me? Accounting is tracking the flow of valuable commodities such as money or time. Okay, that's very abstract. Really what accounting is, for the purpose of what we're talking about today, is tracking the flow of money coming in, money going out, and also money that you owe, right? That's kind of the most important thing for a person tracking their personal finances or a business tracking finances. There's tracking of assets and things as well, like maybe you have holdings of some sort, like financial holdings or real estate or equipment, computers and stuff. You may have to track those things as well, and a bookkeeping system can do that for you, or can help you do that. So a lot of these plain text accounting softwares will do something called double entry bookkeeping, which is like a more reliable way to track how things move between accounts through something called credits and debits. So for every for every amount of something that goes through the system, it has to come from somewhere and it has to go somewhere. So because of that, you have to kind of tweak your brain about how you think about how you might do accounting. It's not really the same way that you would expect, but it actually is quite interesting for people who are kind of systems minded or programming minded. I think that you will find if you look into double entry bookkeeping, you'll probably just want to do it because it feels interesting the way that things are done. I'll try to get into a little bit of that as we go through the examples. I'm no expert on this by any means, and I haven't really done a whole lot of it in the last year. I've done it, on and off over time, but I'm sort of just trying to convey to you that there is something interesting about this. It's not just some boring, let's just talk about accounting on a stream, for boredom or something. I don't know. Excuse me. No, it's interesting. So maybe I can try to convey that to you a little bit through the course of the stream, and you will give it a shot and try it out. 1 second. Sorry, I'm getting over some weird bacterial thing, and it's been a whole journey. let's see. Oslo says plain text, but if it's not, it's in some hard to read binary format. How can I take it seriously? Well, some people do think like that. That's true. Hey, Dave. Dave says accounting, fun stuff. I don't use any of this stuff, but Sprightly uses bean count with Emacs. Yeah, Emacs is a good interface for this stuff, as we will try to see in a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to explain double entry bookkeeping to you, at least not top to bottom, because that would be really boring. What is plain text accounting? In 2003, John Weagley, who was major contributor to Emacs and also at one time the lead maintainer of Emacs, is that right? Invented Ledger, a command line reporting tool and plain text data format for efficient double entry style accounting. Ledger's ideas appealed to many software developers and technical folk. In 2007 and 2008, it was joined by H Ledger and Bean Count, respectively. And as of 2019, there are more than a dozen Ledger likes because, if you think about it, this is a pretty easy type of program, quote unquote easy, to just like write a program for a language that you're learning. So if you want a kind of fun project idea for a language that you're learning, you could write a clone of Ledger in your language of choice, because what you're really doing is reading in files, calculating data that's coming from those files, and then printing out reports. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? That's a pretty good test project, I think, for learning a new language. So anyway, that's probably why there's so many now, is because it's, why not? Why not just write another one? Many add-on tools and an active community. The plaintextaccounting.org site was started in 2016 to help keep track of it all. All right. So these are command line tools. That's another interesting thing about this. It's not like a graphical program that you start up. It's you write plain text files in the format that Ledger expects. And if you have a tool like Emacs, it can help you to write those files in a more efficient way and structured way. And then you run a command line tool to operate on those files. So you can write your Ledger files by hand and not even have to run Ledger at all until you need to do calculations on the information that's in those files, which I think is kind of interesting. Let's see. Pi says, David is being international. We should review IASB and IFRS. Please don't bring more of these international accounting and tax things into the picture. Zerka says, can you simply tell what is double entry system? Well, that's sort of what I did already. In a double entry system, you have accounts where money comes from an account and goes to an account through credits and debits. So it's really just a way of tracking how money flows between accounts. All right. So that's what we'll see for now. Let me get a link to Ledger. So Ledger accounting program. All right, there we go. ledgercli.org. So we'll put that in the list as well. So the alternative to Ledger that many people use, which I've also used a bit, is H Ledger. H Ledger seems to be mostly compatible with Ledger format. There are slight differences here and there. One reason why people use it a bit more often is because it is said to be faster than Ledger. It also provides more features. I think it has like a built-in web interface. So if you wanted to edit your account information in a UI, you could do that using the backend of, or the graphical backend of H Ledger. So there's some advantages to using Ledger. I'm only going to focus on advantages to using H Ledger. I'm only going to focus on Ledger today because it is sort of the standard for this whole model. So that's what we'll start with. There's also a Ledger mode for Emacs. I don't know if that's documented in the docs for Ledger or if it's somewhere else. Alejandro says, finds accounting boring. Well, it can be boring. Yes. It can be boring to have to do the work on it, but actually, as a concept, it's pretty interesting. Double entry bookkeeping is interesting. Emacs. Another interesting thing about this, which we should get to, and don't let me forget, is you can actually put your Ledger information into org mode files. And there's support for having Ledger blocks in org mode. I think that actually is built in. One of the languages supported by Babel is Ledger. So if you set up your Emacs config correctly, I think these should work, right? Then what you could do is have your ledger entries in a block, and then you can run a report on those to get the balances for the accounts after that point. Okay, yeah, you do have to set up ledger in your org babel do load languages config. Let's see. So we'll come back to that. Let me just put that link in the notes anyway. From the manual. Okay. Zoom all the way to the top. So let me get Ledger installed correctly first, because I don't actually have it in my Geeks config at the moment. I have H-Ledger, but not Ledger. So let me find, is it an Emacs here? Ledger. Let's see. Come on, load. Alejandro says, knows that meta up and meta down moves items in the list. Yes, I know. But it doesn't do it reliably for me the way that I expect it to. And I also don't like moving my hand over to the up and down arrows. Ledger. Emacs ledger mode. Okay. Do I not have that in here? That'd be kind of weird if I didn't. Oh, I think I broke it out into finance. This is the kind of weird stuff I'm doing. I have a home service for finance. Do I have it on this system? I don't think I do. Let's go to Systems Phantom. All right, and then, whoops. There we go. Now let's go to Control C, G, US. Hey, Dominic. Alejandro says, maybe Ledger makes accounting less boring. It does. It does make it less boring. Let's let it take a second here and try to get that installed. What I want is to have actual Ledger installed. Apparently I didn't have any of the packages installed so far, so. New home. Is that new? That's complaining. Okay, it looks like it's gonna finish fairly fast. Dominic says, I have a literal coding file to manage my yearly budget for external partners. You mean you wrote code to do that, basically? I mean, it makes sense. Hello to Menacing Mecha. Menacing Mecha says, I've used Ledger exclusively for bookkeeping my self-employment, but not really mess around with fancy reports or org blocks. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Definitely using it for bookkeeping for business is pretty good. By the way, I saw your email, Menacing Mecha, on your newsletter. I saw that Y2 Roll is going to be released fairly soonish. Do you have news on here? People should sign up to your mailing list. Anyway, Menacing Mecha is a game developer and has participated in a few of the game jams. I know it was like maybe a couple of them, right? Recent Lisp game jams. Anyway, sign up to Menacing Mecha's mailing list. I want to see if is there an archive here, and archives are not enabled. Anyway, I want to tell people that your game is going to come out relatively soon, so they should check it out. Is it Y2? Okay, it's Y2 Roll. Anyway, kind of N64 style graphics. Kind of like a, one of those games where you're rolling the ball around and trying to keep it on the balance stuff. Anyway, just dropping that in there, okay? Just dropping that in there. Wishlist Menacing Mecha's game. Friend of the channel. All right. So, Dominic says, first Ledger and then a bit of Python and GNU-plot at the end. Yeah, GNU-plot would be pretty cool for that. Look at all this Haskell library stuff that HLedger has to install. I'm not real thrilled about that, but whatever. It'll get done. So Zerika says, what shell are you using now? This is not a shell. This is me running a command. All right, let me show you what this is. Control HK, Control C, capital G, U, S. Yes, that's a terrible binding. This is my DW Geeks Update System command, which really just runs async shell command and runs a script of mine and puts it into a specific buffer. So it's not really a shell. My pleasure, Menacing Mecha. All right, so yes, that's just a command that runs it in a buffer that I set. Geeks System Update. There we go. We're compiling things now. What's going on? Yes, Y2 roll does look cool. One of the reasons why I ever heard of Menacing Mecha to start with is because I saw some of his stuff on Twitter a while back, like some of the shader stuff that makes games look like N64 games, which I thought was really cool. Alejandro says Ledger is not GPL, but BSD licensed, if that concerns anyone. Well, I mean, it shouldn't really, because you still have software freedom. It's just not GPL type freedom. Shirgo says, how about GNU Cache? GNU Cache is cool, actually, because you can extend it with Steam. You didn't know that. I haven't really used it too much, but it is nice. You know, if you want a graphical program for doing your accounting, it's nice. But I haven't really used it. I'm much more enchanted with the idea of having a text file for my accounting. So this is not Ledger that we're having the problem with right now. It's HLedger. HLedger is written in Haskell. So that's why we're having to install all this extra stuff just for HLedger. I had both of them. I had HLedger in my profile already, or in my home service profile already. But I added Ledger now. Ledger only is a C application. I think it only had, I don't even know if it had any dependencies. Let's see. Ledger. Do you have dependencies other than compiler? Okay, it has a few. But still, it didn't do all the extra Haskell stuff. Come on, let's go. Come on. All well Nunez says, I use GNU Cache with Postgres database. I like to have, excuse me, I like to have an underlying database so I can join data with more external sources and create my own graphics. I mean, you could do your own reports and stuff like that with Ledger. Gunn says GLedger would be written in Guile, and Case says Sledger. I'm just waiting for Case to write one of these programs in Bash. Because that's what Case likes to do. He likes to just go and write up the, things that exist already in Bash. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm very impressed with his patience to do that. But yes, I'm waiting to see Bashledger. Case says, nah, I'm done with Bash. Bledger? Yeah, that sounds good. You're being bludgeoned with Bledger. Not the person using Bledger, but the person who's writing Bledger is being bludgeoned. There's no SC copy today. I guess Ashraz probably is busy with things that are more important than copying messages across. The bot is not reliable. No, that bot is more reliable than me. The bot is a person. All right, we're waiting for my entire system profile to be updated. Friendship over with Bash. Now Common List is my best friend. They were referring to the classic meme. Sounds like the sort of thing Bad Cop would make on stream. I've never heard of Bad Cop before. Oslo says, I plan to rewrite my tax program in Common Lisp. Yeah, get some CLOS in your taxes. Some CLOS for your IRS. Are we done yet? No. Sorry, folks. All right, I should probably be looking at the manual for Ledger while we wait on this. Okay, so fat-free accounting, introduction to Ledger. Ledger is an accounting tool with the moxie to exist. How about that? It provides no bells or whistles and returns the user to the days before user interfaces were even a twinkling in their father's CRT. What it does offer is a double-entry accounting journal with all the flexibility and muscle of its modern-day cousins without any of the fat. Think of it as the brand muffin of accounting tools. Now, I don't think anyone is going to be excited by saying it's the brand muffin of accounting tools, because it just sounds like something you don't want, right? You should say this is like the delicious glazed donut without sprinkles of accounting tools. Then that would probably sound better, but I don't want to go too far into my critique of the marketing. Okay. Big Edie says, so basically Ledger when spreadsheets are too user-friendly. Yes. This is what we do a lot in this channel. We take things that are already user-friendly and we make them less friendly because it's more fun that way, right? An amazing Bash streamer, she'll make Bash do things that'll blow your mind. I don't know. I feel like that would be more stressful than anything. To use it, you need to start keeping a journal, the basis of all accounting. If you haven't started yet, now's the time to learn. Checkbook journal records debits. Wait, hold on. Okay, so there, yes. A checkbook journal is a journal. So, okay. The core concept here in Ledger is the journal, which is basically the series of transactions that are happening between accounts that you're logging. And then the program is able to go read that journal and then do a lot of calculations and generate reports from that. So because you spent the time to write down all of your transactions, the money amounts, where they go, that sort of thing, this program can go and calculate all that up for you. And then let you know what the result is, which is cool. What computers add is the ability to walk through these postings and tell you things about your spending habits, let you devise budgets and get control of your spending, squirrel away money into virtual savings accounts. That's another thing that's really cool about double entry bookkeeping. If you want to save money for various different purposes in your personal life or even for business, double entry bookkeeping basically gives you the ability to create infinite special purpose accounts for moving money around. And this money doesn't get moved around in reality to different bank accounts. It's being moved into like little buckets that you create for certain purposes. And you're sort of just tracking how much you have for a given purpose. And it lets you to do that pretty easily. So it's a nice model, in my opinion. Dominic says, send you the skeleton of my literal ledger file via email. Cool. Gunn says, can you also hook it up to your banking software? I'm not 100% certain about that, but I would guess there must be some way to interoperate. Okay. So, let's get to it, all right? There's been a lot of talking here. Here's an example of a couple of transactions in a journal. And this is what the actual plain text format looks like. So here's a transaction at Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store in the United States, if you haven't heard about it before. It's $100 that is being credited to the expenses/groceries account, which is basically a categorization for the expenses that a person is paying for related to groceries. $100, and that's coming out of the assets checking account. So you have assets, which is the things you have that have value, and you have expenses where the money needs to go. So you're basically moving $100 from your checking account, which is the money that you have for this purpose, to your expenses groceries account. So that sort of shows you how your money is flowing from your checking account to a specific type of expense, and that's one way you can use it to check your how you're spending your money against your budget, etc. Then there's a Whole Foods transaction, which sounds weird to me because Whole Foods is generally more expensive than Trader Joe's, I think. So why is it $75? I don't know. Another one where you're paying $75 over to groceries from your checking account. In both cases, the money goes to the groceries account, even though the payees were different. You can set up your accounts in any way that you choose, which is cool. Enter the beauty of computerized accounting. The purpose of the Ledger program is to make journal accounting simple by keeping track of the balances for you. So one thing that you don't see here is that you're not explicitly saying that you're debiting $100 from the checking account and putting it into the groceries account. There's an implication here that the $100 comes from assets checking, so the program can figure that out for you. You're not having to write it all out literally yourself. So that's one of the things that's being implied here. All right. So then when you want to look at the actual balances for things, you can have them in a file and then run them through the Ledger program, Ledger-F, with whatever file that you've stored the information in. And you're also calculating the balances of the accounts in that file. So this balance, I think, is a command. And it just writes out in plain text format the balances for the account after this transaction. So you've taken $23 out of your checking account, you put 23 into the expenses account, right? So this is sort of the core of everything. Now, it looks pretty boring, I think, from the outset, but hopefully we can kind of get a little bit further in depth here. I may have to leverage AI, unfortunately, to generate some transactions, or if I could just find like an example ledger file that would be just, that would be equally as good. I want to have a file that actually has a lot of stuff in it so that we can actually see what it might look like in practice. So let's see, example ledger file. That's a really generic search term. Plain text. I want a really like real world example file. Jack Beatty. How many different sites does Jack Beatty have blog posts on? I can't really say much because I also have a problem with that, but Mike says, how about deficit spending? I must be able to spend more money than I bring in. Yeah, you could definitely model that with these tools, that's for sure. Real world example. Yeah, I don't really see any good examples of this. All right. Maybe we'll do that in a little bit, but we can try to just like make up some stuff to start with. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a ledger file. Let's see, accounting.lgr. I think LGR is kind of a file format extension that people usually use for ledger files. How do you start your accounting assets, checking savings? Yeah, let's talk about setting up a chart of accounts, because that's kind of interesting. Chart of accounting with ledger, principles accounting. That's definitely a good section to read. Accounts and inventories. Ledger, chart of accounts. There's a way to set this up. Oswald says, you need to get sidetracked into generating fake but realistic ledger files. I'll let AI do that for me because it's good at doing things like that. I want this for the program ledger. Plain text. I don't know, dude. Anybody got an example here? Let's see. Okay, so let me go ahead and say this. You don't need to create a chart of accounts to start with. And what is a chart of accounts? A chart of accounts is effectively just the list of accounts that you have for your entire bookkeeping workflow. So as you saw, there was like the checking, expenses, groceries, things like that. There's like a nested hierarchy of categories, effectively. The accounts are kind of categories in a way. You have expenses, you have assets, you have liabilities usually, and you could probably have other things too. It really doesn't matter. You can set it up however you want. But you effectively have to, if you want to have an organized bookkeeping system, it's good to sort of think a little bit in advance about where things are going to come and go from. which is one thing that's nice actually is that you can always change this stuff. You can use find and replace, you know, or grep or sed and awk or whatever to like really process the crap out of all your text files and change them to whatever you want. So it's very malleable. That's another benefit of it all being plain text. You check it into source control, then you can just make whatever edits you want across all the files. You can rename all your accounts. You can restructure them to whatever you want, and then everything will be fine. So it is, that is another benefit, I think. Let me see, accounts. Working with multiple funds and accounts. Structuring your accounts, great. Okay. Yeah. Can you tell me how to do that? I think there is a way to do this. This thing even gets into like stock prices. Separate account. Here we go. Separate file. You have to edit this and add the account directive in front of every line. That's fine. Okay, yeah. You can generate the file. Got it. Okay. So, account, expenses. Account, expenses, groceries. Account, assets, checking. Account, assets, savings. Now, ledger mode. I don't think I have it pulled in. Oh, right. Geeks autoload packages. Ledger mode. There we go. Now this is ledger mode. So, one thing is about ledger mode in Emacs. This is supposed to be about Emacs, right? You turn on ledger mode, it actually turns your ledger buffers. It syntax highlights them. It knows the syntax of ledger files, it syntax highlights them. It also provides completions for certain things, like your account names and other places that you have paid from, or sorry, other places that you have done transactions from. So it is kind of useful for that. So let's see. Expenses, utilities. That's another good one. Account. I'm going to type EX and use Control. Let's see. Ledger. Okay, it's for transaction. Expenses. I thought accounts worked too. What else? Maybe we could just start with that. Accounts, liabilities, credit card. Okay, you can say that too. So let's try to create some things. I think there's a way to create transactions. Control HM. I'm gonna look up the ledger mode key bindings. Oh, CMI does completion and point. All right, Control C, Control A, ledger add transaction. So Control C, Control A. It's gonna ask me the date of the transaction. I'll just say today. Transaction, what would I say? Kiosk, I don't know. Wait, what? No accounts or past transactions matching kiosk. Let me see, ledger add transaction. Use ledger to add a transaction to the buffer if it's a certain point, blah, 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 blah. Transaction text. Maybe I actually have to type the entire text. So what would that be then? I think there's also a way to do it from the command line. So we might be able to find the format of that. Entry. Yeah. It's weird that it doesn't let me do it though. No accounts nor past transactions. Well, I need to have a transaction, don't I? All right, how about this? What's the date format that it wants? Year, first, month, day. Okay, so 2025/04/11. I'm just gonna say kiosk because I go buy monsters from kiosks, monster drinks. Let's see, kiosk. I press enter and it goes down the next line for me. So expenses, colon. I'm using Control Alt I to get completion. So it's giving me completions on. It's giving me completions on my account names, and it gets them from the current file, so it kind of knows what the what the things are. So €2. I don't have the euro key though, so I'm just gonna say they're $2. All right. And then where's that coming from? It's coming from assets, checking. Okay. So that's done. That's here. Now the thing about this being red is they track whether the kiosk is a different thing. It's sort of the place where a transaction comes from. It's not the same as an account. It's more like a label for a transaction. Is that the right way to say that? Anyway, it gives you the ability to reconcile transactions. So this transaction, if we haven't actually seen it go through completely on our credit card or debit card or something, or a bank account yet, we can leave it without the star. But later, whenever you've gone through your bank and you see that the transactions have actually gone through, you can put a little star here, and then it makes it not red anymore. So that's what this thing means. There's probably a command for that too. So Control H M, reconcile. Control C, Control R. Control C, Control R. Oh, that's not right. What is it? Is it Control C, Control E? That's it. Control C, Control E. You're toggling the state of it, basically. Toggle current transaction. Anywho. So now that we have this, ledger display balance. So Control C, Control P, display balance at point. So our monster balance has $2. What about our checking? Wait, posting with null amounts account may be misspelled. How's that? So let's try the reports. Control H, Control M, report. Control X, 8 ret euro. Yes, thank you. Let's see, display ledger stats. Okay, I've got an error in here somewhere. Posting with null amounts, account may be misspelled. Oh, did I screw that up? I think I need to tab that out or something. So what was that command? There's a command that I saw for align the transaction. Control tab. Is that right? That's right, Menacing Mecha. You need a bunch of white space. I'm trying to get it to do that for me, but for whatever reason, it doesn't want to at the moment, which I think is a little bit strange. Oh. There we go. So, okay. So I had to add a little bit of space for it to kind of wake up and realize it. An extra space, and then hitting tab did it. All right, so here we go. Control C, Control P. Okay, so checking is -2 is what it tells me. All right. Thank you, Mark. Mark says 2 spaces. That's right. All right, so that's one. When the infinite print infinite money command? I don't know. It'd be nice if there was one. All right, so let me see. Dealing with petty cash. Oh, you can have a cash account. Yeah, that makes sense. Balance. Balance? No. Ledger balance. String P nil. How's that work? Wrong. Sorry, I'm trying to get my fingers working here. So port, Control C, Control O, Control R, balance. Okay, there we go. So I ran a report using Control C, Control O, Control R, and I selected the balance report. And that gave me the list of balances currently for the transactions that have happened in this ledger. Okay, so we see that there's negative $2 in the checking account. There's also the other account where the monster expenses go to, which we can see. Quit to redo. So there, it gives us a little bit of a pop-up there, it seems, for the commands, which is cool. Let me run that again. Okay, so E to edit, S to save. I don't know what editing would do. Import command line. Huh, okay. All right. So we need some more transactions. What about getting paid from somewhere? How does that work? I can't remember. Revenue, I think. Income. Job. Sure. So how about I get paid for my job? 0411. The job. Whatever that job is. It's going to go into assets checking. Let's say 500. Sure, why not? And then it comes from income, job. So this is sort of the idea with the whole double entry bookkeeping thing. Money has to come from somewhere. It doesn't come from trees. It doesn't come from space. It comes from an account. So you have to create an account of some sort to represent where that money's coming from. In this case, we're creating an account that's being debited called income job, and that money's being put into assets checking. And so it just gives you a way to show the flow of money from certain places. Then you can generate reports on that later to see like how much money you got from a certain source, let's say. If I'm wrong about this, let me know in the chat. But that's sort of my understanding of how this is all working. So if I do a report at this point, get the balances, I can see that my checking account has $498 left in it after I spent $2 on Monster because I made $500 from my job, okay? So you can kind of see how like over time as you add more and more entries into this ledger, you would see more value from it because you would be able to break down all of your income and expenses and also what money you have in various different accounts to do that. So another thing I can do is have like an account for savings, new computer. So that's like a virtual account. If I wanted to, I can move $250 over to that. So 2025 04 11 new computer savings, let's say. We're gonna move that into the savings new computer, and we're gonna put 250. Gun says, do you put everything into one ledger file? I would say for a given time period, you probably would. There's probably ways to do includes. Include the stated file as if it were part of the current file. So, I mean, one thing we could do here is we could say accounts LGR. We could drop all these in there. And then include accounts.lgr. Right? Drop that in. And then do the same thing. This should work, I think. Control C, Control O, Control R. Save the buffer, balances. Ooh. Oh, right, I never finished that. So, assets, checking. And then Control C, Control O, Control R, balance. Yes, so you get the same thing, basically. But I wonder, does it work for things like completions? So if I were to go back and take that out, assets, checking. Okay, so it doesn't give me the option for savings. So one potential downside of not having your accounts in the same file could be that the mode can't figure that out. Menacing Mega says, I normally split up my files per tax year with no includes to keep things separate. I think that's actually the approach I would take too. There's this concept of closing the books. which means that, excuse me, after a certain period of time, whether it's quarterly or yearly or however you want to do it, you generate a report of all your accounts at the end of that time period, and that's sort of like the state of all of your accounts then. Then when you start up your new time period, like a year or something, you import the balances of those accounts to set the sort of context for that time period, and then you continue forward with what you're doing. So for that current year, you don't need all the transaction data for the previous years necessarily, because you can just run reports on the previous year file. You can just deal with the current year file to only have to deal with the things from the current year. Cal says, the job, David confirmed, as a hitman nicknamed the Fisherman. Yeah, I don't think so. All right. So we will undo what I had done, putting the accounts in a separate file, because, hey, I want to have completions working just fine inside this file. So let's do that. And this comes from assets checking. Excuse me. So now we're back to the balance we had before. So at this point, excuse me, our checking account has $248 in it. Well, we are going to assume our checking account has $248 in it, but in reality, that money that we moved to the savings new computer virtual account is not actually moved out of the real checking account. We're doing this only for our own tracking of money. The reality of our actual checking account will probably match up to there's probably a way to generate a report so that you know what the actual balance should be of the checking account without the virtual accounts. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you would be able to match it up at least and say that the account should have the amount that it actually does. Like in reality, like your checking account should have the same in the end. Anyway, so that's that for now. So what else do I want to show, like as far as Emacs and Ledger together? I'm not trying to do like a comprehensive Ledger tutorial here by any means. I'm really just sort of trying to show that you can do this stuff, and it actually works out pretty well. Let me just toggle these. I don't like looking at them being not completed. Those of you who have done accounting before in the chat, is there any other cool stuff that I should try to do to show things off a little bit? I'll also take another look at the manual, see if there's anything interesting. So let's go back up. I'm going to go to the principles of accounting with Ledger. Stating where money goes. Accountants will talk of credits and debits, but the meaning is often different from the layman's understanding. To avoid confusion, Ledger only uses subtractions and additions. Alejandro says, what does the toggle state of the transaction mean? The toggle state means whether you've gone to your bank account and seen that that transaction has completed, or you know that it has been completed. It's just a way for you to track whether reality matches what is there for that transaction in your ledger. At least that's my understanding. It's like just a way for you to track that the transaction is complete. All right. Recall that every posting will involve 2 or more accounts. Money is transferred from 1 or more accounts to 1 or more other accounts. Yes, you can do multiple accounts as well, which is kind of interesting for one transaction. To record the posting, an amount is subtracted from the source accounts and added to the target accounts. Yeah, pending transaction versus confirmed. Thank you, Menacing Mecha. In order to write a ledger transaction correctly, you must determine where the money comes from and where it goes to. For example, when you are paid a salary, you must add money to your bank account and also subtract it from an income account. So that's basically what I did here. Income, job. I could call it salary. How about that? Let's just do this. I'm gonna use normal find and replace in Emacs. Colon job, colon salary. Boom, now it's done. That account has been renamed That will be reflected in the reports because this is all coming directly from the text file, right? Menacing Mecha says, so like when the invoice is made, it's pending, and when the money has gone through, it's complete. Yeah, that's a good point, especially if you're waiting for people to pay you. No, there's another way to do that too with double entry bookkeeping, which is having, I guess your invoice could be a liability at some point because it's money that you expect, but it's not cleared yet. I might be wrong about that. All right. So let's see. What else can we do? When you earn money, the money has to come from somewhere. Let's call that somewhere society. In order for society to give you income, you must take money from society in order to put it into or make a payment to your bank. When you spend that money, it leaves your bank account and goes back to society. This is why income will appear negative. It reflects the money you have drawn from society. So yes, this is how much you have stolen from society. I have stolen $500 from society by having a negative $500 balance in my income salary account, just so you know. So that should give you some motivation to go make more income because you get to have that negative value for your income, whatever account, get bigger and bigger for all the value you have extracted from society. Yes, you strip mine society for value. All right. Let's see, what else? This is the beginning of economy, after which the explanation gets terribly difficult. Yes, of course. No comment. Based on explanation, here's another way to look at your balance report. Every negative figure means that account or person or place has less money now than when you started. Cool. Assets and liabilities. Assets are money that you have. Liabilities are money that you owe. Liabilities is just a more inclusive name for debts. An asset is typically increased by transferring money from an income account, such as when you got paid. Liabilities track money owed to others. This can happen when you borrow money to buy something or if you owe someone money. Here's an example of increasing a MasterCard liability by spending money with it. Yes, you're basically saying, I'm taking money from an account that has to be replenished at some point. I have to pay that back. So that's actually kind of an interesting example. Should probably do these on different dates, but whatever. 0415. We're gonna go into the future now. Future. Let's see. Dinner at McDonald's. So, liabilities. What did this say there? Liabilities there. Credit card. I'm gonna spend $82 at McDonald's. Why? Just for the sake of example. Yes, for the sake of example. Oh, that actually comes from the credit card, and it goes to expenses, food, or we can be more specific. Expenses, fast food. Let's get a breakdown. Expenses, fast food, and that was what, $82? All right, cool. So now if we run our balances, we see that we have negative 82 liability on the credit card because we have spent money from the credit card. So we now know we owe $82 back on the credit card. So we can actually make a payment back on the credit card later in the month. 04, 20. Pay credit card. Now, liabilities, credit card. We're going to pay $82 back. Why not? And that's going to come from assets checking. Okay, so now if I run the balance again, we see that the credit card doesn't show up anymore because we've paid it. That balance is zero. But we see that the assets checking account keeps going down from the things that we are spending from that, right? So since certain balances are zero, it doesn't show those accounts, which is nice because we don't get inundated with information that's not relevant for the case that for the current state of our finances, let's say. So that's cool. That's great. That sort of shows how we can kind of manage things over time. The combined total of your assets and liabilities is your net worth. See your current net worth. Use this command: ledger balance assets liabilities. Let's see. Can I do that with the ledger command? Let's see. Control COR balance. press E to edit. So when you press E to edit, it lets you edit the command line that's used to generate this report. So I'm going to say assets and liabilities. And now it says that I have $166 in assets. I have 0 in liabilities because I had paid that account off. This seems like regular expressions to me, doesn't it? Like the caret for assets shows you, it's like you're filtering accounts based on a regular expression, right? Benoit says, are we syncing transactions? No, but it's possible to do that. I think there are tools for doing that. But I haven't used them, though. Let's see, what else? Expenses auto. Another common question to ask of your expenses is, how much do I spend each month on X? Okay, so I could do that. Register. Let's try a different report. Register report. Oh, that's cool. That's a nice looking report. And that's telling us the different transactions we have and which accounts they're coming from. Another way to look at that. So I could check for, let's do another transaction to buy another monster at the kiosk. I'm basically buying them every day, so why not? All right, so the kiosk. How to deal with credit interest. Whenever you get charged interest, you would have to log that yourself, basically. As, I'm not sure if it's an expense. You would probably need to ask someone who knows that better than me, but definitely you want to track that. Yeah, you would want to track it as part of the balance of your credit card. So when any charge goes against your credit card, even if it's the interest charge that goes against your account, you would want to track that. So I think that's how you would do that. This is just plain ledger, Benoit. We're just going from plain old ledgers to start with. Gunn says, what about when on vacation abroad? Does it convert currencies? Yes, it does that. It does that. Hermine says, accrual versus cash basis. Accrual-based accounting is very interesting, but it's more complicated. So cash basis is what a lot of people use. Is there no way to calculate that automatically? Like say to set the interest per month? Maybe. Okay, yeah. So, let me just try this register thing real quick. -M register expenses auto. So, I'm trying to finish off this one thing. All right, so I got that expenses. Then assets. Actually, we'll use a credit card for this one because I'm terrible with my finances. Okay. Now we're gonna run a report, a register report. Okay, and now we can edit the command and say what account we want to focus on. So expenses monster, and we get our log just for that. Is that what we're trying to look for here? Yeah. All right. So you can just see sort of what you're spending for a given category. It helps you to filter that down, basically. Hakon says, are there integrations against banks so you can automatically fetch transactions? There must be other programs for that. The point here is that this is just plain text information. So however you can get information into it, you can do it. And there's probably programs that will do this for you. I just haven't looked into them myself. All right, tracking reimbursable expenses. Okay. Okay, and you can have your own reimbursements account that you have to pay people back from, I guess. All right, what else? Apply account. It means that all accounts mentioned in the file are children of that account. Interesting. Yeah, like what Minity Mecha says, it's bank dependent whether there's tools available. That's right. All right, commodities and currencies. I mean, if you have stocks and stuff, then that could be useful. I'm not really that interested in that right now. Accounts and inventories. You can actually store inventory. So if you run a tavern and you want to count how many apples and steaks you have, I guess in EverQuest, whatever, you can do that. You can store any quantity of anything. You create the quantity or the denomination. You can just invent denominations of whatever and track those. Because why not? It's just numbers, right? Most confusing transaction in any ledger would be your equity account because starting balances can't come out of nowhere. When you first start your ledger, you likely already have money in some of your accounts. Let's say there's 100 in your checking account. And then add a transaction to your ledger to reflect that amount. Where will money come from? The answer is your equity. So you have an opening balance. This is also a thing that you end up with from closing the books and bringing them over to the new time periods. You have to have a sort of an opening balance for your books at the time where you start. So we'll just say 0401. And that's opening balances. I'll say assets checking 750. I don't know. Assets savings 1,000. Equity opening balances. Does that work? All right. But what is equity? You may have heard of equity when people talked about house mortgages. Basically, equity is like the value of something. If you own a car worth $5,000, you have $5,000 in equity. When you start a ledger, you probably already have a net worth. Your net worth is your current equity. By transferring the money in the ledger from your equity to your bank account, so you are crediting the ledger account based on your prior equity. When you look at the balance report, you'll see a large negative number for equity that never changes because that is what you were worth before the money started moving around. If the total positive value of your assets is greater than the absolute value of your starting equity, it means you are making money. Until you figure it out, put not equity at the end of your balance command to remove the confusing figure from the total. Okay, so if you do balance and edit it and say not equity, it removes that out of there. Okay, so you don't have to see the equity thing in there. So that's cool. Let me see, ledger balance. I think there's a way to configure the default reports. So ledger reports. So you can customize any of these. You can also add other ones of your own making. Basically to say that you run ledger, whatever the binary for ledger is, and the current ledger file, and then you put the parameters in for what you want to do. So you can have reports of any kind or commands of any kind that you want on the report list. Let's also check out Control COR. We're going to look at accounts, and then it's actually going to give us a completion list for the accounts. I can take a look at expenses monster. And then that gives me the register. So I actually don't have to do anything special on that. It just tells me the transactions that happen against that account. So opening balances were $750. A monster from kiosk minus $2, and we're now at $748. I got paid by my job. I added $500. New computer savings. I moved money into savings, so now we're back down to $998, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of get to see the listing of things that happen over time with the account, which is pretty nice. All right. Cool. So what I want to do at this point is show how this can be integrated with org mode, okay? Because this is about Emacs primarily. I mean, we're showing sort of what you can do with the Ledger program, but org mode is another big part of the Emacs experience, and it is possible to use Ledger with org mode. So let's take a look at that to see what other kinds of interesting things we can do. So let's take a look at the manual, the org mode section of the manual. So org mode has a subsystem known as Babel, which allows for literate programming. It allows you to mix text and code. One of the languages supported by Babel is Ledger, so that you can have Ledger commands embedded in the text file and have the output of Ledger commands also appear in the text file. Let me go over to the show notes for today. We'll hack together a little bit of a configuration for this. Yeah, I'll do that. Now, use package Ledger. I'm just going to put that there for my own purposes. Config. One of the things I need to do, which I had seen, is to add this to org babel do load languages. So we need to add Ledger to the list of languages that get loaded up. I may have this somewhere else in my configuration, but I'm not that worried about it. I think that it's going to be fine. All right, so that's one thing that will give us the ability to do this. In fact, I could probably just put this stuff inside this org file, which would be kind of cool. Okay, so once the Ledger support in Babel has been enabled, we can proceed to include Ledger entries within an org file. There are 3 ways that these can be included. Place all Ledger entries within one single source block and execute this block with different arguments to generate the appropriate reports, or place Ledger entries in more than one source block and use no web to combine these into one block elsewhere in the file for processing by Ledger, which is more than likely what you would end up doing, because what I imagine you would probably do in an org file that had Ledger entries is that you would have notes about transactions and maybe things broken into different sections, like maybe per month, things of that nature. So you could have an org file that has all of your accounting for the year, and then your general accounting workflow potentially, and then you have like things broken down by month for that year, and then you can have blocks that have all the entries for those periods of time. Let's see, embedded Ledger example with single source block. Oh, and 3 is place Ledger entries in different source blocks and use Tangle to generate a Ledger file, which you can subsequently process with Ledger. So you can tangle those out as well if you want to. Or notes with accounting entries, maybe. Yeah, maybe. All right. In denote. You could do that. It might get a little bit messy. Okay, so embedded Ledger example in single source block. So we have begin source Ledger. Let me close this out. And we'll say April 2025. April. I should probably make a thing for this, but whatever. Begin. So let's also do this. How about this? Org bindings are going to kill me. There we go. No. Nope. Nope. Counts. We're going to want the no web style of doing things too. I'm just going to try to drop some stuff in here just for funsies, okay? So let me go over to the accounting file that we have. I'm going to copy the accounts list that we had made. Right, so we got that here. And then inside of April, I'll go ahead and copy our transactions. Opening balances, I might move that to the beginning of the year. So okay, so we got that. I'll just say, oops, that's 2024. 0101, that's fine. Break that down to the next line. And then that here. I think we also need to set ledger file stuff up to be colorized. Huh, why is it not being colorized? It doesn't like the indentation. How can I fix that then? Because this is an org mode setting that I have set up, and it's tricking Ledger. We'll see if this works. It might actually give me trouble. I think I could set this per file. So what was that setting? Org, Babel, org block. Yeah, I'm using that, Dominic. The problem is more of I'm concerned NoWeb is going to have problems with this, but we'll see. Maybe it won't. All right, so I've got the opening balances set up. I've got the ledger block set up for April, right? I've got the initial accounts set up. So what I want to do is try to do the whole NoWeb model on this. This is all in one. I want to do NoWeb. Multiple blocks with NoWeb. We got to put NoWeb yes on all of these to make sure that they work. So org indent, that may not be exactly the one, 100, but thank you. So we got, oh, not that one. We want that block. We want this block to be NoWeb, and we want this block to be NoWeb. Okay. And then how do we run the reports? Generate a register of all the transactions. Entries, NoWeb, yes. Overall balance summary. Okay. Oh. Do you have to do it that way? Name expense. So these are named blocks. Got it. So name is April. Name is balances. Name is accounts. Then we can have like a reports section. This is the right level. Yeah, move it a little bit here. Okay. So we'll do the same thing. We'll have begin, sourced, ledger, NoWeb, yes. Is that correct? command line bow. And we need to do the little imports here. So accounts. Okay, so that's the 3 things that we've put in so far. And I think if I press Control-C in this block, no execute function for ledger. That's interesting. Let me just scroll back up real quick. We got April, we got balances, we got accounts. That should be correct. So let's see, reports. See, Ashraz, no worries, man. Have fun. Let's see. Overall balance summary, generating a monthly register. So something's missing in the configuration. Okay, so this, oh, interesting. That has not been updated. Org Babel do load languages. Let me go check that code block and make sure that it actually did get executed. Cannot open file OB ledger. Why not? You know, I wonder if it's in the org contrib. Yeah, org contrib. I don't think I put org contrib in my stuff. It says unmaintained add-ons. Let me go to my geeks config. Max org. Yeah, I don't have org contrib in here. I'll bet that's where it is. And now we're gonna have to wait for Emacs to install this. Let me see, Control G US. Let's see what it does. How long it might take. Because we will have to have this loaded up. Emacs ledger org contrib. Just make sure that I'm right about this. I think that's right. Okay, let's see what's in here. OB-H ledger. OB ledger. Okay, so there's a separate one for H ledger. That's cool. But yeah, org contrib is where this is. Let's see how long this takes. But once we get org contrib in, then we should be able to load that. Babel. Wow, did I put the wrong date entirely on this file? That's fantastic. There we go. Real nice. Hopefully this will finish soon. Chewing on its profile. So yeah, once we have this in place, I mean, what are we really gaining by doing this? I think there's some nice organization that you can achieve by doing this. You can also use some of org mode's features for including things. Now, the question is, inside of a block, do we get any useful completions, or is this something that Emacs is doing on a per buffer basis? So liabilities, credit card. Do we have anything that I didn't use? Any accounts I didn't use? Savings, new computer, assets, savings, assets, checking. Okay, what about savings? Yeah, so it doesn't actually know about accounts that aren't somewhere else. So I think when I had tried this in the past, I realized there was a problem with breaking things up into org blocks like this or breaking it into multiple files, because the completion functionality in Emacs is actually quite useful for quickly adding new transactions. You can do completions on the names of transactions, and you can do completions on the names of accounts. And it only sees what's in the current buffer. It knows the format of those transactions, and it's able to build a table of completions from what it sees in the buffer, but it can't follow paths to include from other places, or it doesn't know how to rationalize org files. So I think what I eventually came to was the realization that it's better just to have a normal ledger file and just work with that directly rather than try to put it into org files. But it is there as an option if you want it. Just let me know. All right. Let's see. Yeah, if you have it all in one block, it's fine. If you have it in multiple blocks, then it doesn't really work the same, because it only sees what's in the current buffer for the completions. Come on. 160 packages shouldn't take that long, right? You know, this is the price you pay for perfection in computing. I'm calling this, Geeks perfection in its own way. What kind of insight can you get from Ledger? Well, you can get insight into where you're spending your money, or where your money's coming from, or just generally do your taxes. I would prefer not to have to do taxes at all, because taxes are literally like a 4 or 5 month issue for me every year, for various reasons. And people could say, well, it shouldn't be that complicated. Well, you don't really know much about the kind of taxes that I have to do. It's annoying. Yes, I don't like taxes. Sorry, I keep bringing taxes up as a joke just because it's a pain in my ass every year. Okay, so we've got the thing loaded up here. Let me reload my auto loads. And I need to go back into the config block so that I can add the ledger language. Now it worked. Find library, OB ledger. There you go. It's in here now. Great. So we should be able to go do this no web. If I use Control-C, evaluate this block, yes. Then it gives us a results block here that gives us the output of running that. The outcome, or sorry, the output of this does not look quite as nice as what you get running the commands in the command line, or running it with the ledger mode package in a normal ledger file, because it's not being highlighted the same way. I mean, it's just plain text here, but it is plain text that is in the document, which is cool because you kind of hold that output and have it all together there as a report that you can look at later. Now, there's two ways you can deal with this. One is, well, there's a few ways you can deal with this. For the purpose of accounting, especially for like a business, it would be useful to have some sort of just general structure for the information you're storing every year. Like you have your actual ledger file, but then you have the output of running the reports that you need to be stored. You don't want to just run those on demand. It would be nice to have them just sort of in the file, checked into repositories, so you can go look at them without having to run ledger again for that year. So it is kind of nice to have the stuff in an org file so that you can have the output of the reports checked in. Oh yeah, I have to file US taxes multiple times basically, and Greek taxes, and they all are dependent on each other, so they have to be done in a certain order. Yes, it's fantastic. So I'm filing taxes 3 times per year at 3 different times, which is great. So I think there's value to some degree of having things in an org file, but it makes it not as nice of an experience, in my opinion. I think having just a normal ledger file that you edit much better, because you have nicer highlighting and you have the ability to generate reports in a way that is very readable, in my opinion, because you see the negative and positive numbers, you can see the names of the accounts, etc. I just feel like this is a better experience overall. And the other thing I didn't really mention is that the editing experience of this is great, because all your same Emacs key bindings, all the same stuff that you're used to works. Control L for scrolling around, Control N, Control P. I wonder if I can, yeah, you can sort of do gradual region selection. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with the normal Emacs key bindings to edit the buffers. So it's just better, I think, to be able to edit it directly in a buffer, because you get all the benefits of Emacs for editing these files. Speaker says, it's not cool if I can't org. Well, it is cool though. And what I was trying to get to before is that I think you could probably import this file into the org file. I think there's a way to transclude a block. You're basically pulling the contents of a block back into, context of a file back into a block, and then you can use that as a no-web block to then, or a general block to execute commands and get the output in the org file. So you could probably have the best of both worlds, but at least for me, I think this is fine. Gradual region selection. I'm using Control Alt Space. It just sort of goes and selects more stuff. What is that? Control Alt Space. Mark S expression, but I mean it's usable in other files as well, it seems. Let's go into this org file. Control S, yeah, Control Alt Space just sort of grabs more and more stuff. All right, let me just double check the manual, see if there's anything else that would be interesting just to talk about briefly. I'm just gonna go up to the table of contents and take a look. Let's see, commenting in your journal. I mean, you can leave comments, that makes sense. Journal format, transactions and comments, command directives, converting from other formats, archiving previous years. That's kind of interesting. What's other formats? You can convert from CSV to ledger files. There's other commands for that, apparently. Where was that? That wasn't right. Archiving previous years. After a while, your journal can get very large. It won't slow down the ledger. It's designed to process journals very quickly. Things can start to feel messy. Archiving data from previous years into their own files can offer a sense of completion and freedom for the past. Let's take an example file. To delete older data from the current ledger file, use print again. Okay, there's a print command. So you're specifying a time range. You want to archive years 2000 and 2001 to their own file, leaving 2002 to 2004 in the current file. So use print to output all the earlier transactions to a file called ledgerold.bat. So starting in 200, again 2000, in 2002, to ledgerold.bat. E limits output to transactions before the date specified, so it's not inclusive. And then you can begin at 2002 to take anything from 2002 forward, which will not yield accurate present day balances. To compensate for this, we must append an equity report for the old ledger at the beginning of the new one. So let me actually check this. Can I do an equity report right now? So Control COR val E. I'm just going to edit the val report and type equity instead. So it gives you an opening balances list based on the current state of all accounts, I think. That's cool. So that's something you can copy and paste, I think. Now the balances reported from the ledger.dat are identical to what they were before the data was split. Nice. Alejandro says, I suppose you would set some caching account to the money you have in your wallet, do you? Yeah, it does mention petty cash. So basically, you can take money from your checking account and put it into a cash account, which is basically like the cash that you use to pay elsewhere. And you don't have to track that money. I mean, it's just like you turn that account into cash. So that's that. And I think that we're basically done. Let me just do one last little check here. Transaction format, virtual postings, posting costs, balance verification. Yeah, there's all kinds of real like low-level details you can get into here. And like I mentioned before, the H-Ledger program is another one worth looking at if you want kind of more functionality. People generally consider it to be better than Ledger. I've tried using it in the past. I mean, it's cool, it's fine, but Ledger does a lot of stuff. I mean, I think you can kind of get the job done just with Ledger if you want to. All right, I think that's it. Hopefully this was interesting and useful to you. Maybe it will inspire you to try a little bit of plain text accounting yourself and to just, understand the ins and outs of, double entry bookkeeping. It's kind of fun. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any, suggestions or things that I missed, definitely let me know about them, either in the comments or on the forum. I think Ashras created the forum post for the stream and had pinned it in the chat. So go check out the forum and you'll find that post there if you want to leave comments there instead. It might be better than leaving it on the video, that's for sure. And next week, I might not have Crafter Hour streams because it's like the Easter season now, basically. Like Easter's happening pretty soon, Greek Easter. So kids are going to be out of school and it's going to be a little bit untenable. So we will probably be back in a week and a half or possibly 2 weeks for Crafter Hour streams. We'll see how that goes, but I just want to let you know in advance on that. I'll be using that time to work on Geeks course material in the meantime. So that should be a good way to make up for that. So anyway, hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate your time and attention. Until next time, happy hacking. See ya.